Alright, today we're going to talk about cheap guitar sustainers. Oh yeah, and a little bit of news. I found out my eyes are more fucked up than they are supposed to be, so yeah, for these parts of the video where I'm not wearing glasses, I'm probably effectively blind. And yes, I know it's overexposure, the lighting in here sucks, but I don't want you to see the chaos going on my couch back there because I've got more guitar projects than any man with my lifestyle has any right to have. So, this is the video I kind of was talking about on Instagram, maybe Facebook a little bit, making a video about cheap Indonesian guitar sustainer products, in particular those made by iSUSTAINER and VEYZ. I guess that's how you pronounce VEYZ. Anyway, I use both. I like both. I think they both have merits and they both have upsides and downsides. But before we jump into them, let's talk about sustainers a little bit and what this technology is. Because I don't think a lot of the back thinking guitar players really have a grasp on why you would own something like this or have something like this. Well, let's talk about it a little bit. So, sustain devices and sustain itself are kind of two different things. You can think of regular guitar sustain as basically this: the minute of time from when you pluck this note and the whole thing dies out. That's how that works. That's your sustain for you in the regular general sense. And I'm taking this strap off because we're not putting any straps on these guitars in here, and I'm overlaying all the guitar playing on this video. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the other type of sustain. And this is where a lot of people get in fights on the internet, and why I don't go to internet guitar forums anymore. Basically put, your talk of sustain is completely different from what a sustainer, i.e. Sustainiac, Fernandez sustainer, VEYZ, iSUSTAINER, all that kind of stuff, actually is. The history of the sustainer is a type devices starts with the e-bow, the electronic bow. It's this little thing that looked like a staple remover that you basically held over the strings. What would be a good object around here for me to improv some absolutely horrid stand-up comedy with? So you have your guitar, you're playing it, you hold it over the strings like that. And you used to hear it a lot. It worked with the neck, bridge, all the pickups. That's kind of the deal of what e-bow was. You just held it over one string and it sustained that string infinitely as long as you held it there. And you could also flick a switch on it and get another mode that that would make it go into a harmonic. That's how it worked. And these devices back in the day, you know, there were famous people who played them. I believe the guy in Modern English used one on Melt With You for the guitar. So, guitar part, whatever it was. And then you also had Paul Reynolds of A Flock of Seagulls. And if you didn't have one, you had to resort to things like Elliot Easton of the Cars did on the song Since You're Gone from Shake It Up. He had to play the solo by taping off 5 of the strings of his Les Paul, turning the monitors up in the sound room, and then going, that whole thing. And he was just doing that all with sustained feedback. So that's really what the early 80s guys, how they did it. The whole idea was kind of to compete with the synthesizers of the day, because you had the synthesizer player, and he had this, electronic keyboard that, though laughably limited by today's standards to some people, was actually quite incredible for their late 70s, early 80s. But when you get into the next level, the first time we ever actually saw a commercial product with an actual full-on 6-string driver-based sustainer type system, it came from these guys, Kramer. Yes. In 1987, Kramer came out with the Kramer Sustainer guitar. It had a Shaler humbucker in the neck that had 2 blades in it. This guitar actually had one of those pickups in it, but it was in the bridge, and we wired up the sustainer coils as extra coils, so it was like stupid high output. It's actually what this detonator was to replace. So anyway, The Sustainer humbucker-based system was put in a special purpose-made guitar by Kramer. It was marketed by Shaler and Floyd Rose. And, surprise, surprise. And it had like added just two little switches to the guitar, and when you turn it on, it gave it infinite sustain, up and down the neck on all 6 strings. And you had 2 modes, harmonic, which bloomed it into a harmonic when you hit the note. It was the same deal as the EBO. Or you flipped it the other way, and we'll talk about how this feature works later. You flipped it the other way, and it just gave you the natural note infinitely sustained. Unfortunately, this guitar failed to catch on. For one, Kramer was already faltering. They'd already gotten sloppy with endorsement deals and messed a bunch of shit up. Second part of this whole scenario with Kramer was people weren't really interested in buying a purpose-built singular guitar that came in one style and did only one thing. This is one of the things I understand as a guy. I'm probably more of an idea man than an actual luthier, probably. Because, I look at this and I look at ideas like this and I see why they didn't catch on, being a guitarist myself. And one of the reasons why was because not everybody wants a Kramer guitar body. Someone might want a Flying V or an Explorer or Jaguar or something. And when they want that kind of stuff, if their only choice to do that, of course, you're going to see limited use. Of course, I think there was like one famous guy who actually did use one, but he didn't use the sustainer feature, so it was just another nameless pointy super strat in a sea of pointless, nameless pointy super strats. Yeah, if you hear music, I have Metropolis soundtrack going on in the background. So Kramer was first, then came Fernandez in about 92. They came out with this Strat model that had the feature. I'm guessing whoever the designer was that worked with Shaler and Floyd Rose must have moved over to Fernandez. I'm not sure. So Fernandez had their sustainer system next, and they started off just making a Strat style guitar with it, and then they made a bunch of other models. Tellys. They had that model called the Vertigo. They also even had a Jaguar Jazzmaster shape model too that had the Sustainiac or Sustainer in it. It wasn't a Sustainiac. I'm not sure where Sustainiac actually comes in, but Sustainiac is one of the current players. Them and Fernandez, they're the current two that most people think about. Those two companies kind of became the ones that became famous. I think like Fernandez was at first used by Steve Vai, and then Steve Vai started using Sustainiac. That's mainly him, and Sinister Gates seem to be the two most referenced sustainer users nowadays, which is kind of interesting. I'd get into it because I don't really listen to that music that much. I'm usually too busy listening to my own stuff and messing around in the studio nowadays just for fun. So those are kind of big, but the big problem with those systems is they're incredibly expensive. For the one that you get in Fernandez that you can get standalone, it's basically a Stratocaster wiring rig with a switch set up with everything pre-wired. You just basically pre-wire it in your guitar and you're good to go. Because just like other things in guitar, they've kind of made it obscure how these things work to keep competition in the market, I guess, and not have so many copycats. But at the same time, I'm here to tell you it's not really as difficult as they make it sound. Either that or it just doesn't seem difficult to me, because after all, I wired this whole mess up, and this has been working since I was 17 years old. That should give you an idea of some credentials I have. So, without further ado, let's get into what we're talking about today. These Indonesian systems. So let's start with the first and most common one that you'll see, which is on my most recent build over here. We have the VEYZ sustainer, also known as Tony VEYZ, or it goes by a bunch of names. This sustainer unit is a 3-mode sustainer unit. VEYZ is well known for having a lot of varieties, a lot of styles. They've kind of done what, the copy market does with full guitars. They kind of copy the look of other people's products. That includes stealth versions like this. It looks like a Strat single coil in the neck position of this crazy scale length / fret number Altered Explorer that I just built. The way they also have them in styles like the Sustainiac, the Fernandez Sustainer. They do ones that look like the old Kramer Sustainer. They have ones that look like, they make them in all kinds of colors, like neon green, hot pink. I mean, if you got a super strat 80s hot rod guitar with a Floyd Rose, I mean, pretty much you'll be able to find any color you need. And I think they're able to make some personal amendments to their design for your instrument. Their company, typically my first experience when I looked at these, I read a lot of the reviews. People have mixed reviews on these devices on how good or bad they work. You know, you have some guys that complain, oh, all my guitar does is shriek. I'm like, yeah, there's more setup to it than just wiring it in. And then you got the other guys, they're like, oh, but you know, it works great and it works awesome. And then you got guys like me, I mean, who will tinker with the thing always till Tuesday to learn, get the feel for it and get what we want out of it, or more, really. The VEYZ system typically comes pre-wired. Typically, the driver's already wired to its phase switch. To explain how these sustainers work, so this looks like a pickup, but it really, even inside it looks like a pickup. I mean, I wired my own. We're going to probably talk about building your own eventually on this channel when I have time and when I finally get to prototyping this. You build your own sustainers using, you know, you use a regular guitar coil. And what it is it's wound with, if you've ever seen regular pickup wire, hopefully I can shed some light on this well enough that you can see. The wire on this isn't as hair thin and as fine as what you'd normally find on a pickup. A pickup, you know, hair thin wire. This is more like somewhere between angel hair pasta and hair thin. And anyway, this wire here, you wrap it around until you get about 8 ohms resistance, about the same as a speaker. Because basically all a sustainer driver is basically a speaker without the paper cone around it. And then what it does is your guitar takes the input from your bridge pickup, sends it through another amplifier inside the guitar, and then the output of that is sent to the sustainer driver, which then pushes at your strings. It basically induces a feedback loop. I mean, I can even show you right here. When I flick this switch on and hold this, can you hear that buzz? So yeah, that's an unplugged VEYZ sustainer. It works even when the guitar's not plugged in. This is all self-contained system. So the humbucker sends its output through, in part, through that amp, and then that amp amplifies the signal, sends it back out through the driver, and it induces kind of a feedback loop between the neck position area driver and the bridge position bridge pickup. That's why you see a lot of these guitars with Sustainiacs and sustainers. They either don't have a neck pickup or somebody's got like a humbucker size cavity and what looks like a hot rail or some kind of stacked humbucker up there, because in order to keep your neck position sound, and I'll exhibit this later in the video, you have to isolate the neck pickup from the driver in some way. It's not like you can just go and put this in any position of your guitar and expect it to work, because it's only going to work in the neck where the string takes the least energy to get moving. That's why these drivers are always in the neck, because when you pick a string back here by the bridge, it sounds twangier, but you also notice it takes more force to pull that string there than it does here to induce a nice high quality vibration. So the way you pull it off is by having it in the neck where it can go on that string and get it going. That's the whole reason why they're in the neck. I even had somebody comment on another video of mine talking about putting one in the middle of their telly. I mean, feel free to try it, but I don't think it's going to work, at least not as well as it does. I already know I'm walking a fine line here with the 24 fret neck and having this in the neck position. Now, on these systems, we're going to talk about each system kind of individually first to talk about my experiences. So the first one I bought, and this even goes into what else I should probably talk about before I go into it, is selecting a guitar for this. For your first sustainer guitar, I usually suggest picking one you're not using very much, but that you still like enough that if you are going to play it, you're actually going to like it enough to continue to play it. My old red Kramer, this is my first electric guitar. I've had it since 1995, so almost 30 years. This guitar, is one that kind of semi-retired in the mid 2000s and stopped using as much except in the studio. And it doesn't mean it was bad or anything. I just wasn't using it as much. One, sentimentality, and two, more importantly, I was doing other things with other instruments at the time. So when the opportunity came for me to actually put a sustainer in one of my guitars, I thought, well, which one would I want to put one in? And I thought, well, I just put the super hot 17K ohm humbucker in the bridge. And let's talk about that part of selecting. You also want a guitar with a hotter pickup in the bridge, because the hotter the pickup, the more vibrant and the more powerful the sustainer feature is going to be. This Duncan Detonator, which is a Korean version of the Invader, is about 17K ohms resistance. That's a very high output. That's more than a Duncan JB, and a Duncan JB is another ideal pickup you would use with one of these. Duncan JB, nail bombs, maybe a tone rider generator if you really are going after more boutique-y stuff. I could even see these maybe even working pretty well with even a moderate 8 or 9K humbucker. But honestly, once you get past the 10K point, I mean, that's kind of where you start getting into the ideal territory for these. Now, they do work in single coil mode, but we'll talk about that later. So, high output humbucker is what you most likely want. You want a guitar that's very likely to have easy to vibrate strings on it. And I'm going to turn this music down because you want a guitar with very easy to vibrate strings on it, nines. That's one thing we might eventually want to test with these. Maybe on one of my other builds I'll put heavier strings. The verdict is out. Maybe someone can comment whether heavier strings or lighter strings would work better with this. And the reason why I say so is because right now what I'm running on here is both guitars have the same strings. They have Ernie Ball, 9-gauge, pink label, standard issue, find them in any music store strings. Yeah, my headset's falling off. So that's what we got, 9 through 42. Fairly decent enough stuff on there. What you're also going to probably want to do look out for is what you have going on for the neck. And you need to decide whether you can live without a neck pickup or not. Now, this being my old trusty Franken Kramer, I didn't want to yank out the neck pickup. So I got a clever idea, and you can see this in like the 3-hour installation video when I installed this. I did the same trick Steve Vai did. I basically built a mount for each side of the pickup, which is adjustable via these two screws here, put a nice low output 5.27K ohm single coil in there. So I now basically have a regular Kramer Focus 3000 with a really hot bridge humbucker in it, but with a standard output single coil, and then next to it a iSUSTAINER driver, which is a good time for us to transfer over to the two companies we're talking about and their particular products. I'm going to start with this one, the iSUSTAINER, and you can tell the iSUSTAINER, they pretty much, they have like 3 styles of driver. This one, as you can see, it says iSUSTAINER under there. I don't know if it's clear enough in here, but you can see it says iSUSTAINER on it. Their kits come completely disassembled. You have like 3 black wires, 3 red wires, battery clip, 2 switches, 1 double pull, double throw, and 1 double throw, single pull, double throw switch. You have to hand wire it all in yourself. You have the amplifier board, which is about like 1 inch by 1 inch and has a gain trim pot on it. And then you have your driver, which comes in only one color, black, and it comes in several different styles, depending on whether you have a single coil slot or a humbucker slot in the neck of your guitar, or if you're utterly industrious like me and have a crazy route under here that allows you to actually fit 2 single coils in the neck position, and then you wire it up. Excuse me, a little dusty in my garage. I've been building too many guitars lately. Anyway, so the iSUSTAINER product is from Infinium Guitar Industries. I don't know if they have any other products. Doesn't look like it. They primarily sell through Reverb, and their units are usually between, I think I paid like $75 total for this, including the shipping. all the way up to about the mid hundreds, like 150, 170 maybe max. So kind of $100 range there, but very affordable. I mean, definitely the system I'd pick if you were wanting to maybe play with this in like a modded Squire Affinity, or a Squire Bullet, or maybe throw this in your Epiphone like Special 2 Les Paul. If you're really looking for the lowest of the low end and most affordable option, I would go with this. Shipping time take about 3 weeks, so almost a month. They ship via Indonesian post, and then Indonesian post comes to you via USPS. Everything comes packaged in a pretty generic little box that's fairly small, about the size of a box you'd probably ship a pickup in. And everything is put together off of one little folded manual, and you get all the parts individually. So I have like a 3-hour installation video of this that pretty much goes over the whole installation process, what I went through putting it in this guitar, because as we can see, this isn't your standard Kramer Focus 3000 with like 3 knobs, a 5-way switch, and a 2-way toggle for the coil split. This is my own custom wiring I did when I was 17. Originally how it was done is individual on-off for each pickup with a coil split for the bridge humbucker if it's put in the up position. One volume, one tone, strangle switch like the third switch on a Jaguar, the slide switch that emulates the rhythm circuit on a Jazzmaster, and then I had like a kill switch right here. And the kill switches I used were always these cheap crappy ones from Radio Shack that didn't last very long, so I always ended up yanking out and having a hole there anyway. So when it came time to come up with where to put this on this guitar, I was like, well, I know I'm going to be cramming the cavity. So what I decided was, okay, I'm going to put this toggle switch here to turn the sustainer on. And then I'm going to put the phase switch right here for, because I want to be able to switch from harmonic to the other mode and kind of do some wild stuff with that, really get my miles out of it. So the iSUSTAINER, I mean, really when I installed it, this was the whole 3 hours, the majority of it was just getting everything to fit in here. I think I've pretty much hit the size limit of electronics that Leo Fender intended to fit into a Stratocaster route. I mean, total freaking nightmare getting all that in there. Changing the battery is the same as my Jag Stang. I just undo these 3 screws here and pull it up, and then there's my battery. And then pull it right out, put a new one in, pop it in there. Yeah. So these systems, like this initial install and this one, I did not take certain precautions that I would normally on another guitar. I actually have a third sustainer guitar in here, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So this sustainer is really intended to replace your neck pickup. It's intended where you take out your neck pickup, you now have a single pickup guitar, and the bridge pickup is driving the sustainer in the neck position, and that's how it works. Me, being the guy who likes to have 10 million switches on his guitar, was like, okay, well, we'll put a single coil in the neck along with it. I'm like, it works for Steve Vai, it'll work for me. So that's what I did. I put a single coil pickup in the neck position. And then I, put this in the next to it. And that was another big decision. If you do a setup like this, like me, you might want to keep in mind how many frets you have and the placement of your pickup. Because admittedly, I didn't put this in the optimum location probably. It works great, especially in a single mode, but yeah. We'll probably demo these later in the video, and I'll kind of talk a little bit about how they work. So this one, I mean, pretty much you flip the switch. You can kind of hear I got an eternal note going there. It's a little more subtle. The gain trim pot on the iSUSTAINER, when you turn it, I have mine cranked all the way up. I found out that's how I got the best effect out of it. That's just how it seems to go with that particular particular setup on this guitar. I didn't put a stereo jack on this like I have on my trusty old Jag Stang. And one reason I didn't pick the Jag Stang is I'm not routing Nicky out to put a freaking sustainer in there. That's actually kind of what what that retrofit project with this is for is I'm going to look at ways to maybe make something like a $5 make it holla sustainer you can just stack on the neck or something, and then like maybe run a FFC flat cable in, kind of a high-tech method. But that's for another video and another day. So we installed this in here, and it took me a while to tweak it. You've probably seen some of the videos and some of the posts of me messing with it. So that's kind of how this works here. Is we have that, sustainer. And there you can hear it. It really likes the G string. And let's bring that. Where's my microphone? Yeah, so you can kind of hear it up near the body. It's got that. So there it is, hard at work. It's not nearly as strong in harmonic mode, probably due to the pickup placement. Nice thing on the Kramer is if I ever decided to experiment a little further, I could probably flip-flop these pretty easily without even having to take the strings off the guitar. I just block the Floyd Rose and then pull the assembly out and switch them around. So that was number one, and I really like it, and it's kind of caused the Kramer to get back in rotation quite a bit lately because I've been just using it endlessly for stuff. So when it came time to build this other guitar, you might recognize this, you might not. This is the old Vester boxing glove guitar, which I've now refinished. I did the same thing, although I haven't put a sustainer in it yet. Right now, it's just got a EMG Select as a placeholder there because I was kind of doing some routing, custom routing for this because I had to widen these cavities to fit these pickups. I used the same pickup, bridge pickup as my Explorer, just without a cover. It's a Guitar Madness 15K ohm hex bucker, and it's got 2 hex single coils in the neck and middle positions. But the big difference is in my Kramer, when I wired it, if you look at these switches here, move these pickup wires out of the way. When I did the Kramer, I just had single pole, single throw switches for the neck and middle pickups. And the problem with that is when you turn your sustainer on with the, turn your neck pickup on, or even sometimes the middle with the sustainer, you start to hear through the amplifier. And that shrieking through the amp is not something you want, but it's also not something that likely, I'd run into because I'm very conscientious when I'm playing of where my switches are for the most part, so I'm never going to hit anybody. So this guitar kind of has an innovation I did for mounting a sustainer and a neck pickup and a middle pickup and a 3 pickup Strat with a sustainer. What I did was I've decided to use double pull, double throw switches for the neck and middle pickups. And I have this orange, I don't know if you can see this yellow wire right here that kind of goes down the side. What that does is that severs the negative connection to the battery when I turn those pickups on. That way then, you're mid-show, you're using your Sustainiac, you get to a clean part, you change channels, you flick this back, sustainer's shut off, and now you can play with your middle pickup and not have some shrieking racket coming through your stage level amplifier when you're trying to play. That's the whole innovation that I'm trying to drive here with the electronics on these things with the sustainer, is making guitars that are made for performance that you could use as your main without having to deal with all that crap. That's what I'm coming up with wiring on these. So my thoughts on this one overall, it's got a very strong fundamental mode that's really good for, the crux is you make videos. You gotta make them when you can. Anyway, getting back to it, talking about the VEYZ sustainer unit. So my thoughts are it's really good in fundamental mode, works pretty well for synthesizer type stuff. The only thing about using it with the synthy stuff, which was what I originally intended it for, is that that synthy stuff, after a while, if you hold it up and it's not strong enough, it'll bloom into a harmonic, which can be kind of a cool thing. It does sort of a portamento effect when you do that. Kind of like that. Kind of like what Doug Johnson does with the keyboards at the beginning of Loverboy's Turn Me Loose, right before the bass kicks in. So you got that going for it, which was the main reason why I got it, was so then I could do, infinite sustain kind of synth pads with my guitar and stuff like that. since I don't own a keyboard anymore, and I'd rather be able to do that stuff with a guitar anyway. The other thing that I did it for was kind of for some of the harmonic type stuff. This unit's not nearly as strong as the VEYZ. It will get in bloom into harmonics. It'll do harmonics, but typically only likes the bottom 3 strings on it, and that's about all it likes. It doesn't really like the higher strings nearly as much. Now, maybe if I flipped it and put it up here, maybe that'd be a case. But on the other hand, it's kind of allowing me to get some use of this very seldom used position up here on guitar. Not many people use the low E, A, and D strings on the upper frets, but I'm finding I'm having a lot of fun messing with those up there. So, yeah, that's the Kramer for you. Now we're going to talk about this guitar, which I haven't had on the channel before. You've known I had like a wood grain Explorer a million years ago, so this is kind of its replacement. Here we have my kind of Partscaster home-built Gibson Explorer. So anyone interested, here's a quick rundown of the specs. 1984 Cort Honer Arbor Explorer body. The neck is a Yinfenti 24 and 3/4 inch scale, 24 fret, Gibson Explorer style neck. Right now I have skull tuners on it. Everybody's trying to talk me into taking them off because they think it looks a little tacky. Floyd Rose R3 locking nut. Floyd Rose string guide, of course. Truss rod's bidirectional on this thing, believe it or not. It has a two-way truss rod. China's really stepping up their game on this stuff these days. I mean, literally, the action on this thing is stupid low. As for the electronics, you have one volume, one tone, and then we have over here we have my tri-mode switch that I like on my single humbucker guitars. So back here gives you the sort of Stratocaster parallel twangy thing that I like to use when clean, and then up here is a coil split, so I get more of a Telecaster twang kind of thing, or thin down the sound when I want to, but still keep the gain. And then right here in the middle, we have my sustainer, which you can kind of hear. So that's the sustainer on-off switch. And then this is our fundamental and feedback mode switch. So if I flip it back here, it reverses phase on the driver up here, and then basically it'll bloom into harmonics. If I flip it up here, it gives us a natural note, which already the G string's getting into the game. The Yinfeni, the VEYZ system here that I got, which also they gave me a sticker. It goes on the bottom of the guitar, so this one has the VEYZ logo on it to tell which one it has on it. So the VEYZ system also comes with its own board. You can kind of see the wiring back here. I had to build this slot to put it in here, and then I had to put in you can see I have my 9-volt battery right there and a quick access cover. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then over here we have the toggle switch. So Yinfenti systems are actually a tri-mode system. And originally when I built this, I was kind of under the impression this was a pickup because the ad kind of has some tricky wiring. VEYZ typically sells through eBay, but they also have listings on Reverb and in other places. Their sustainer units usually cost between $111 all the way up to almost as much as a lower-end Fernandez system at about $250, which I think are the ones that come with a pickup installed. If you go look at the wiring diagrams online, there's 2 different wiring diagrams. You'll see ones where there's nothing connected to the on-off switch on the other side. Those are for driver-only units like this, which I'm kind of glad I got a driver-only unit because we're comparing apples to apples here. We have iSUSTAINER's single coil size driver with no pickup added, and here we have VEYZ's single coil size driver with no pickup added. So what you get is you get the driver, you get the toggle switch for your for your phase inversion on the pickup for the fundamental and harmonic modes, and then you have the on-off switch. It's all pre-wired together. I think they're intending that you put this in some kind of HSS superstrat like my Kramer. Of course, again, this would replace the neck pickup on a guitar with the pickup built in. You just put their whole assembly in there, and it would do the job that I did on the other one by just adding a pickup. On And then, of course, they have a bit of a different system. They don't give you individual wires. I don't know if you can see it real well here, but see that white Molex connector there? That's your wiring harness. And they actually do a really good job of labeling it. You have several wires in there, and you wire them to the points they tell you to. And then once you do, you have a working sustainer unit. You have a working sustainer. So the unit itself on this one is a little different. The installation was a little more tricky because this is a Explorer style guitar with very traditional Explorer routing. I mean, you have your three-way switch up here. Oh yeah, that was the next part I was going to talk about. So once you wire it up, the tri-mode, if you put it up here in the neck position, that's the mixed mode that you get with some of the Sustainiac products. They have their own kind of patented switching system for their driver to allow them to manufacture this without infringing. They did a bunch of stuff differently. Yeah, both of these guys have very different amps. The iSUSTAINER one, you could probably even, reverse engineer the dang thing because they didn't encase it in epoxy like VEYZ did. The VEYZ sustainer is coated in epoxy. It's a bit bigger. I think it's like maybe an inch or, like 1.3 inches instead of 1 inch like the other board. So it's a little bigger. On this Explorer, it was really tricky because this cavity is just chock full. As you can see, I have one volume, I have one tone for what would have been the neck pickup position, but it actually turned out to be a real benefactor. And then I had this, and then I have the switch for, fundamental and harmonic mode. Then I have the switch to turn it on and off. Then I have my tri-mode here. That's a lot of wiring going in a guitar. And then check this out. If I flick on that, when my sustainer comes on, I get a blue light in there. So I get to have a nice blue shadow over my pant leg when I'm playing, when the sustainer's on. And fitting all this in here, I had to get clever. So I realized there was a gap between the tone control and the slot there. And so what I did is I cut a slot in the acrylic so then I could go ahead and fit the sustainer board through the acrylic. Eventually, I'm going to put a cap piece here over the top of it. And 9-volt battery changes, of course, are easy. I just undo the 2 screws, pop it, pull out the battery, slap another one in. Takes me 5 minutes. Bada bing, bada boom. We're in there. I decided to keep the wiring as simple as possible by just to having 3 leads going in here, not even a ground. So it all just runs up in here and does its thing. And that's what I did when I built this guitar. The VEYZ sustainer, as far as shipping, they ship a lot faster. They came through DHL, I think, in like a week, but it does take them sometimes almost up to a week to build it for you because they build these things to order. Handmade, I believe, even. They have like this crazy Vernon Reid looking test guitar. I think they actually test it before they ship it out to you. So one of the key things on this is this one too, is you can see that little blue bit there. That's the trim pot. I've spent a long time adjusting the trim pot on this guitar, and the reason why I adjusted the trim pot on this so much was because the trim pot on the VEYZ is a lot different. They have a much more powerful amplifier. I mean, way more powerful. I mean, this thing isn't even plugged in, and I just flick a button, and there you go. I'm already making, sustaining noises with my guitar. So we're going to kind of demo both of these and kind of show you what they do. Both of them should have about the same amount of work time on the battery, and both of them should probably give you a pretty good idea of what they sound like. We're just going to record this on the Bugera 333XL because I really don't feel like dragging my entire pedal board setup down here and plugging a bunch of crap in. And, you know, there you go. And hopefully this just gives people an idea of what these are like. I mean, it's probably going to be rough, but, you know, here we go. We're going to get started with that as we're in my guitar shop. All right, so right now we are on my old red Kramer here. On the Bugera 333XL. And here's a sustainer in the off position. We're going to stay on the bridge pickup. I might show you for a second. If I turn it on, you can hear already you're getting noise from the sustainer there. So let's turn the sustainer on. And it's a little dead in some spots, but in some spots like this, it stays up. Sometimes you might need to alternate frets on different strings to get the full sustain out of it. You can get cool sounds like that. You can combine it with feedback to get those kinds of tones. To kind of show you this, it works on the G string pretty well. You can get that kind of Greg Hawkes thing going on. You know, you got that. Let's try the B string. So you can see, this is just fundamental mode. The iSUSTAINER does a pretty good job. It's very clean. I've noticed on the Bugera, it makes a lot less noise. And I'm doing a lot of whammy bar stuff to kind of show you that, you know, that's the note being sustained and not just me making screechy, squealy noises and stuff. High E string, it's not nearly as effective with the high E. As you can see, like it dies out there. But up here, it's actually not doing too bad around the 12th fret. It does give a little longer sustain to the guitar. But if we put it on harmonic mode, which is when I flip the switch forward towards this position, see how different that is. It's a more subtle musical effect than the VEYZ has. You can really kind of, you know, it really encourages you to play slowly, you know. Kind of getting some of those things that kind of sound like Paul Dean's solo from Destination Parkway. It doesn't do as well on the higher strings, as you can see here. It doesn't do as well on the higher strings, as you can see, in harmonic mode. But it does add a little something. I mean, you can hear how it started blooming in a harmonic. I mean, there you go. It's not nearly as strong as, say, the other one. But that, you know, but you can see it's doing pretty well there. And then let's talk about it working in single coil mode. So we'll flip it here, single coil mode. Single coil mode, it still works too. I mean, you got your natural mode here. But you can kind of hear it's not nearly as intense without that high output pickup driving it, you know. with a single coil, but you're going to be better off with a high output humbucker. Wanted to kind of show you a lower volume though, what happens when this sustainer is engaged, and then you turn that on. You heard that? I'm not annoying my neighbors by doing that more than those 2 times. So what's happening here is your driver does vibrate a little bit, even if it's potted. It's going to vibrate a little bit, and when it's right next to your neck pickup's going to pick up those vibrations, the frequencies of the sustainer's electromagnet, and it's going to cause a whole bunch of squealing. That's why that Vester has that special wiring in it that I added to allow you to shut off the sustainer just by automatically turning on one of these other switches. That's going to be kind of like a fail-safe. So when I build anything that's going to have one of these units on it, because without it, you can see I would just have a regular neck pickup, And I can even sometimes use it with the middle, which there you can kind of hear. You hear that amp, you hear that distortion in the back. You hear it less this way, but you hear more. You hear that distortion? That's the amplifier. It does drive back a little bit through when you're at full gain. Anyway, we're going to switch guitars here, and then we're going to talk about the VEYZ unit. So now we're on the Explorer with the VEYZ unit on it, or VEYZ, or however you pronounce it. So on this guitar, we have the VEYZ unit. We're going to go back to my lead channel. This is what the guitar sounds like without the sustainer on it. So you can see we have that. So as you can see here, we have that VEYZ sustainer unit in here. Now let's go ahead and engage that. Back here's harmonic mode, forward is natural mode. So let's go into natural mode. So back is natural mode, just like my other one. So I kind of forgot before this. But you catch a little bit of harmonics with the VEYZ, even in natural mode. Natural mode on it isn't nearly as effective as the Kramer at times. Except unless maybe you leave your G string open. So natural mode on this is a little better for the upper strings, You can get some really synthy noises with it too. Now going up here when you're in harmonic mode though, kind of gives you that sort of half-cocked wah sound, the way I have it adjusted. And it introduces a little more noise because the amp is a little more powerful, plus I have the gain as high up as I could go. The trick when I was tuning this particular unit was, taming this unit was when I was turning the gain knob, I had to literally mute all 6 strings with my hand, and then sit back here and turn with a screwdriver while I was holding onto the strings to make sure I wasn't getting just the harmonic feedback from the guitar strings, like is starting to happen now, as you can already hear, I'm sure. Because this unit has got a stronger amp than the iSUSTAINER does. But here's the cool thing. I thought having this pickup switch was going to be useless until I looked up. Now here's mix mode.
somehow mixed mode becomes almost like a natural mode. And it kind of emulates a neck pickup. I mean, you can roll it off. The tone control interacts with it, which is kind of wild. You can kind of use your... It'd be like perfect for like the solo on Stranglehold or some stuff. So yeah, you can use it with that. You can put it in the middle position. I mean, it's cool because you just have so many different timbres to play with just because of the sustainer. Because the way this unit works is it actually feeds your signal through the amp and then feeds something back out into that neck position slot for the mixed mode. And that seems to have effects on your tone on the guitar in kind of a surprising way with the VEYZ system. And I like both of them. They're both good, but they're good for different stuff. I mean, if I try to do the synthy stuff with this, I have to be on the neck pickup and have some of my treble rolled off via capacitance to get... So you have all those different sounds, you roll off the tone. So you got a lot of different things. I think I probably have never had so much use for a tone control on a guitar before, honestly. I don't use them very often except maybe on my Jazzmaster, but on this, I mean, it's like... cool stuff with this thing, and even one thing with this half-cocked wah sounding mode here, though, is you have to get used to the idea of muting your strings effectively. Because if you don't, it's going to sound like you're... It's going to, sound messy. It's going to sound messy and out of control. So you really have to keep a tight control on this when you're using it. Sometimes it might even help just to, So you can kind of see here, you got a lot going on. And of course, when you turn it off, I mean, I got a nice sounding Explorer style guitar. So you can see we got a nice little Explorer style guitar here that, chugs away. And that's kind of the thing with these sustainer pickups. Hopefully it's been a useful demo that might actually help someone in their purchasing decisions of one of these cheaper Indonesian sustainers. I wouldn't knock them because they're actually pretty dang good for the price. I mean, just a little secret on the Explorer one here, I actually saved some money when I bought this one because I was on eBay and they offered it for $100. And I was like, oh yeah, if they're just offering just $100 for it, yeah, I'll get it, So it turns out, it goes to show you, sometimes cheap stuff is pretty amazing. I mean, you know, I still have some fret work to do on this. That would be another review for like a Yinfetti neck. But yeah, anyway, this is creepingnet signing out. See you next video.